Hey, welcome back. This is Shah. I got a Sacramento local child support story for you guys, and it involves he's kind of a local celebrity. He's an artist, and his name's David Garibaldi. And there was news like last week that he was in jail, and people were trying to figure out why he was in jail because they saw his name there in the system, and it was the talk on like Sacramento Reddit. And some of the theories that were thrown around was that it's child support. Well, he's out of jail now, and he basically gave us a statement describing his experience and confirming that it was child support. This is significant to me because I used to work at the child support agency here in Sacramento. So let's go ahead and see what's going on.
Sacramento artist David Garibaldi says COVID shutdowns caused him to miss child support payments, landing him a 10-day jail sentence. Garibaldi made a name for himself on NBC's America's Got Talent back in 2013. This is video from 2018 when he was getting ready for a tour. Garibaldi spent 5 days in jail after receiving an early release. We reached out to him for an interview, but he pointed us to a video that he posted online this morning instead.
So I wanted to address why I was in jail, the road that led up to this, and also how this can happen to anyone who may be in a similar situation. I would also add to this that there was a very inaccurate report by a news station that I respect, but Steve, you left out a lot of very important details, which I will share here. Also, this will be the only time that I'll address this publicly. But let's get into this. So I went to jail for being non-compliant to a temporary child support court order for the amount of $14,000 per month. And I was put in order in November of 2018. Now, how did we get there?
Okay, so he's got a child support order of $14,000 a month. I think that's for probably two kids, multiple kids probably. And this is in 2018. So I worked at the child support office from 2015 to 2020. So I was there when during COVID and when this happened.
In the beginning of 2017 was the original date of separation. And the mother of my kids demanded that she be paid $20,000 per month. Even though I stated this was unsustainable for any amount of time, she demanded it. And also threatened the process that we are currently in and have been through. So I paid it all through 2017. I paid $20,000 per month. All through 2018, up until November 2018, I paid $20,000 per month.
Unbelievable. $20,000. I don't care how much money this guy makes. If someone gets separated, I just don't think that's justified. You do not need $20,000 a month, even with two kids.
When we got to court, the judge had to make a temporary deal to start this process. And so she was asking for more. I was offering less. And the judge decided on just kind of a number out of the wind of $14,000 with no data to support that I could even afford this, or that there was any discovery shown that this is an accurate number.
I think it's for two kids, but we don't know if that figure includes spousal support or not. He's not really breaking it down, but that's okay. Another thing to note too is that he's self-employed. Self-employed guys were some of the toughest guys for our office because, this goes into the back end of the system, but a lot of it depended on what they reported they made. The only other thing we had for these guys was one little blip of a gross income, or of not even gross, but the profit that they made as income that was reported from IRS in our system. So IRS would report this to us.
So I reluctantly agreed to this 2-month temporary deal, hoping that we would find a resolution.
See, that's how they get you with the temporary deal. Once you agree to that, now there's an order that says you owe this much, right? So now there's a case history here. Now there's like, well, he's been paying it for this time. See, he can't afford that.
And that's where this story begins. This temporary order was kicked down the road for years. Along the way, I was accused of hiding money. And so before the court would even think about changing the order, I was ordered by the court to hire a court-appointed forensic accountant, which I took on the cost for all of this.
Yep, that's pretty typical too. So, I mean, if you marry someone, they don't have income, not only do you got to pay for that, but you're also going to have to pay for, the mediation. You're also going to have to pay for her attorney's fees on top of your own attorney's fees. So it really adds up.
Now, they gave us a half-baked report that even still said draft on it. They didn't even finish the report. But there is an important piece of data in there that showed that my monthly take-home could not support this monthly amount sustainably. In fact, when we got to 2020, at that point, I had already paid over $600,000 in support from 2017 to 2020.
That's crazy. So you pay her $600,000. If that's just child support, that's a lot. There might be a little bit of spousal fixed in there because it appears he's paying $20,000 total. I don't see why the judge would have just did temporary for child support only.
As we all know, in 2020, the world shut down. I went from 100 shows a year to 0. But that didn't stop the court coming after me for wanting to pay the full $14,000 amount, while myself and the rest of the world was trying to figure out how are we just going to support our families today.
See, okay, and then here's another thing. So I remember when this happened. I was actually the lead of the review and modification team during COVID, when COVID happened. Everybody else got to go home, and they called my team back in literally 3 days after the initial shutdown in March, because what the child support agency was offering was these modifications, because the court started saying they would do special modifications for child support. It appears he wasn't able to qualify for that. That could go back to his self-employment and him not being able to prove that he doesn't have income anymore. But for a lot of guys that were losing their jobs, they weren't able to go into work because of the lockdown. The courts were doing special modifications for them. So that's why my team had to come back in the office to process these. Unfortunately, David Garibaldi was not able to avail himself of that. Maybe if he would have got a job at some random place making way less money, some essential place, he might have been able to show us a pay stub that said, hey, I'm making, $19 an hour now. Can you guys modify it to match that income? But that looks like it didn't happen for him. Also, while still maintaining 50-50 custody with the kids, involved in their daily lives and activities, as I always have been. And to add insult to injury in 2020, my ex made a Facebook post that eventually went viral and took a screenshot of my arrears, and I'll explain what arrears is in a moment, of the arrears that I owed, and she crossed out that support amount of $14,000 per month. So she's going for the public shaming routine. If you have a court order that's as big as $14,000 a month, and you're not making any money, you can only pay $3,000 on it this month. So now you owe $11,000 for that month in arrears and back pay. Arrears is back pay. And this goes on for a few months. That number of arrears is going to look really high in just 2 or 3 months. She's going to be like, wow, this person owes me, 30 grand or whatever. Look at this deadbeat. But she crossed out the monthly amount obligation. So people can't see that it's actually 14 grand a month that he has to pay, So she went for the smear campaign. And what he said about 50-50, just to address that, is it's sad. It's like, you got 50-50 custody. You're paying $14,000 a month. It's crazy that you can be taking, care of the kids half the time and have an order that's that high. It's just ridiculous. Now, what arrears is, during 2020, when I was not making the full $14,000 a month payments, any amount under that is considered being non-compliant. So if I paid $10,000, it's non-compliant, $13,500, you name it. So that goes into an arrears, and I'm now in contempt of a temporary court order that was not being changed. So, okay, and so just even having arrears amount on there, it starts the whole child support system. If you have any arrears for a whole month and you haven't paid it, they're going to send an electronic request to DMV asking them to suspend your license. Now you're rolling around with the suspended license. If you have any other licenses, bar, medical, they can choose to get those suspended until it's paid. If you're over $3,500 in arrears, you can't renew your passport. So now it's like you can't drive legally, you can't fly because you can't get your passport renewed. And if you owe $14,000 a month, it's easy to see how those amounts and thresholds can be reached so fast, even within a month.
So now fast forward to where that led us next, which was the contempt court for DCSS, which is the Department of Child Services for Sacramento.
Okay, and so contempt court, contempt court, you end up in contempt court if you have arrears on your child support case and you haven't been paying. Then the caseworker can choose to file a motion for contempt. You then have to go to court, and now the judge is going to be like, hey, why aren't you paying child support? And can you make a payment today? And if you're not paying, they can order you to do community service, and they can order jail time, which is what happened to him.
And in that court it's a symptom of this bigger problem. Having a court order with no financial data and now punishing me. And along the way, while still being an active father.
See, he thinks that he's sitting here and he's got these injustices in his mind. He's like, this is a temporary order. They never actually looked at my real income, but they're still expecting me to pay this, and they're not changing it. So he decides to take it in his own hands, and he's just like, I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to pay. It doesn't make sense. It's unjust. I'm not going to pay this. But what he doesn't understand is that nobody cares. The court's still going to throw him in jail. They're like, hey, there's this order. It's very robotic. There's an order. You owe this much money. You did not pay. You're going to go to jail.
I had my license suspended.
There's a license.
I did 60 hours of community service.
Oh, there he did the service.
And
okay, so that means he went to court probably more than once, because at some point they had to have ordered the community service. And then after that, he still didn't pay.
And now, most recently, the harshest punishment, while still trying to be an active father to my kids. Now, in court, before they did the sentencing, there was an option to do home detention or work project. They offered it to the other party. They objected, and the judge decided to go with them and what they wanted. So I was ordered to a 10-day sentence in jail.
So there, both of the parties were in court, and he didn't pay, and they're like, the judge was like, well, here are the options. He can go to jail, he can do community service. And the ex-wife's side was like, we'd rather he go to jail. So the judge was like, all right, he's going to jail. What's interesting about this whole thing is the timing. So if you look at his Instagram on August 7th of this year, David Garibaldi actually posted a clip of him proposing to his girlfriend, now fiance. Okay, we got some nice, fun music in the background. There's David Garibaldi. Oh my God, it's a beautiful sunset. He popped a question. She can't believe it. This is all a surprise. Oh, he's getting down on one knee. So it's like, that's kind of interesting. I mean, so soon right after that, the other party is always going to be watching what you're doing. And it's like, if you do anything like that, where it seems like you might have a little bit of money that you spent, they're going to be like, why aren't they paying me my $20,000 a month or $14,000 a month or whatever it is? That's one thing. The second thing about this guy getting married, again, is I don't understand how he can have two kids with this other lady, pay $20,000 a month, then pay $14,000, end up in jail, and like have all these bad things happen to him, like that derails his business, his career. And then he thinks to himself, you know what's a good idea? I think I'm going to get married again. It's like somehow, instead of just being like, all right, I did this once, I'm just going to be a free agent, I already got two kids, it's still worth it to him to get married. And it's like, I know the proposal video came before he went to jail, but I'd like to think maybe going to jail for 10 days because of this might be kind of an eye-opener to him, so he can probably think, is it worth it?
So I'm not going to describe what that experience was like, but I will say that I know there's a lot of people that may be going through something similar. I know that I don't have to share any part of this story to the public, and I don't owe an explanation to anyone but my family. But we've had these hard conversations already with our business partners, our family, our friends, privately before this all happened. But I'm sharing this for those of you that may feel like there's a system in place that will still lock up a father who has 50-50 custody, active in their kids' lives, and still pays actively child support while bearing the expense of trying to figure out and fight this system for a new court order or even a final decision in this.
See, it's crazy. When this finally happens to you, that's when you become an activist. And I've seen this so many times. It's like the most recent guy was, I think, Tyrese Gibson. That guy that was in Fast and the Furious, like he's been going through child support hell. And there was that other guy I really liked from that movie, The Mummy, Brendan Fraser. That guy got raked over the coals with child support, you know, and now it's happening to this guy.
That's why I'm sharing this. It's a weight. It's a spiritual weight I've been carrying for the past 5-6 years. It is something that my family has been dealing with for a long time. It's also a subject that is usually pretty shameful to talk about. Child support.
And it's like men feel that way because the public is conditioned to think if you're not able to pay your child support, you're just a deadbeat dad. But it's like there's all these, you know, really, really high child support orders out there. I mean, I remember, you know, again, I remember when his case came into our office. I was there.
I was there, Gandalf. I was there 3,000 years ago. When Isildur took the ring, I was there the day the strength of men failed.
You know, and I remember my coworkers, you know, even some of them talking smack about it, you know what I mean, a little bit. And they're just like, whatever, this guy's had to pay. And I knew in my mind, I mean, I've read plenty of child support orders at this time, sitting in my cubicle. I knew like this guy is screwed. He's screwed so hard. This guy who I remember coming up in the world and becoming this local celebrity everybody loved. He's this cool guy, he did all these painting things and he's making all this money and he got super big. This guy just like stepped in a giant pile of dog doo-doo. He met this woman, and now this woman is the worst thing that ever happened to him. And it's crazy. It's like look at his face. This guy can't put it together that this happened to him. Like he's looking into his soul right now and just seeing how he ended up here. I mean, he's had this spiritual burden, as he put it. And he just made this mistake. If he would not have gotten married to this woman, you know, if he wouldn't have married a loser, if he would have married someone who maybe was as successful as him, this would be a whole different conversation right now, you know? And men are ashamed to talk about this because it makes you look like a loser. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're not paying your child support. You know what I mean? Like they're just going to come rag on you for this. But there's so many guys that are just crushed by the system. Their whole lives get derailed. And here he is dealing with it.
But what most people don't know, there's so many details involved, and it's not black and white. And so I hope that what this has done for me is it's actually brought me some light at the end of this tunnel. And I hope that it brings some light to those of you who are going through something similar.
That's enough of that. I think we got the point from his video. You know, it just was significant to me, first of all, because it's in Sacramento. And I remember his case coming through the office. You know, I didn't work on it. You're not allowed to speak about other people's cases. But him being who he is, like, I heard grumblings. You know, I heard it, coworkers talking about it. You know what I mean? In the halls. It's just, for me as a guy to watch this, it's just unfortunate. It's a story I've seen many times. It's a thing most guys don't understand will happen to him. You know, he's dealing with the courts. He's like, I don't understand how they can order these things. It doesn't make sense. I'm not making this much money. He's trying to keep up with it. He's barely keeping his head above water. I know he's got like a studio in downtown. And the other story that came out about him was that he's not paying rent, or that studio basically closed down because he doesn't have any money left. It's all going to child support to this ex-wife who's then posting screenshots of the money that's owed to her on Instagram to publicly humiliate this guy. You know, it's like, it's a real nightmare. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you just so we can see how a guy can totally get netted in here into this trap basically, you know, and this is a guy who's very successful. One of the things I could not shake when I worked at the child support office was this feeling of like, the more successful you are, the more punished you get from society. You know what I mean? It's like, then there's the other guy who's like not doing anything. And you know, he's going to get like the minimum order. It's like $400 or $500 a month, maybe, you know what I mean? And he'll pay that or he won't pay that. And you know, it's just what it is. And mom's just going to have to make do with that. But because this guy is successful and can provide and is providing, because the kid's in his custody half the time, probably pays for all kinds of things, this guy gets punished. You know, this guy's ability to be able to do more in the world and become more successful, to provide more for his kids, gets curtailed by this system, which has grown too big for its own good and needs reform now. Anyways, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your comments down below. We'll see you on the next one.